Hi, it's Clear Vision, and today I'm going to be doing something a little bit different. I have a review of the Xbox One Elite controller that I've been using since February of this year. I'm going to be including all the details that you want to know about it generally, as well as some specifics for Rocket League. If this gets a lot of support, I may also proceed to review other controllers for how they perform in Rocket League, but for now I'll get right into it. Before that though, let me clarify that this review isn't sponsored by Microsoft in any shape or form, and I paid for this controller using my own money. Therefore, I'll try to be as unbiased as possible. First, what is the Xbox Elite controller? It's a controller that Microsoft has released in response to modified controllers produced by companies such as Scuff Gaming, offering similar features to the controllers at a competitive price. Within the box you get a case for a controller, a USB to micro USB charging cable, some manuals, 2 AA batteries, 4 magnetic paddles, 2 magnetic D-pads with one of them shaped like a disc, and a total of 6 magnetic thumbsticks, like in the picture here. 2 of them are short, standard height concave, 2 of them are medium height convex, and 2 of them are tall concave. The controller is pretty hefty, has a rubber grip, black matte finish, and is noticeably heavier than a standard controller, but I don't anticipate this being a problem since you won't be swinging it around. Or at least you shouldn't be swinging it around. On the controller itself there are also 2 green latches on the back of the controller for activating the trigger stops, which significantly reduces how much travel the triggers have. Clearly these features are aimed at those who play first person shooters with a controller, as using trigger stops in this game is a bad idea for obvious reasons. And although in theory using the longer thumbstick can give you better control for having a wider range of motion, I personally feel that Rocket League does not benefit from being able to do smaller motions more easily due to the nature of the game. I recommend sticking with the normal thumbsticks, although for other driving and racing games I may use a convex medium height stick on the left for better control over more minute steering inputs. So far, besides better quality materials and feeling better in the hands, no immediate benefits. It gets a little bit better though, so stick around. Due to the thumbsticks being magnetic, this can mean cleaning the thumbstick will be easier, which is a plus for me. It's important to keep the thumbstick clean on any controller, otherwise the oil from the fingers will build up and cause it to become slippery. I wash the thumbsticks with a tiny bit of soap and under running water. Nothing too special. If you're wondering why I'm mentioning this point, even if you never handle your controller with greasy fingers after eating something, it will still happen over time just from handling your controller. Besides this, the paddles in particular I find very useful. Namely, they help me solve the dilemma of where you should put your drift button. On a standard controller, pressing X and B at the same time is very difficult if you need to boost and drift, and being able to boost and drift at the same time is very important for advanced car control. You can rebind drift to left or right bumper, but the problem then is that at least for me the controls feel too crowded. You can also rebind the A, B, X, Y phase buttons, but I much prefer keeping my controls as close to default as possible because I don't have a problem with most of the default controls. The only changes I've made is that aerial is on LB, look back is on RB, and view leaderboard is now on select. It's very important to me to be able to feather reverse when I need to in order to control my car. And because of the way the Xbox One controller was designed, the bumper and triggers can be activated with just your index finger with no need to move it. I'm not able to feather the left trigger accurately if I hold it in the left bumper, regardless I would try to use my index, or moving my index to the bumper and then using my middle finger on the left trigger. When I was using a normal Xbox One controller, I had drift on X, and boost on B using a very weird claw grip that I can't even explain. Whatever it was, it worked for me at the time, but after a while my hands would hurt after doing this hybrid claw grip for too long, and I was never accurate with it. You may question why I'm making a bigger deal of something that seems so small, but I like to pay attention to the final details. My car control using this method was not that good because I was uncomfortable. When it comes to controllers with paddles on the back, there is no outright advantage for Rocket League, in the sense that buying this controller alone will not improve how good you are at the game. That is a fact. However, I feel that advantage, so to speak, comes from the freedom this controller provides. The paddles are remappable and in my opinion are well placed. Some people hate the fact that the paddles line up with the grips on the back, some will love it. While using all 4 paddles at once, the back controller can feel crowded, but in most games, even besides Rocket League, I haven't had the need to use more than 2 at a time. Even when I do use more than 2, once I got used to it, it honestly didn't feel that bad. There will be a learning curve when using it, but if you like it and get used to it, you won't want to go back to anything else. If you use the lower paddles, you might accidentally press these a few times by accident the first time you use the elites, but the upper paddles are easy to reach, but much harder to accidentally press due to most of being out of the way. To those who are curious, I use 2 paddles for Rocket League, with the upper right being B, and the upper left being X, boost and drift respectively. With this added freedom of being able to get my middle and ring fingers involved, I can hold Xbox One controller in my preferred way, with the index finger sitting between the trigger and the bumper and no longer use a weird grip as a workaround. I don't always use the paddles, I still use the face buttons too. If I press X to drift first, I'll use the right paddle to add boost if I need to while still holding control in a way that is comfortable for me. If I boost first and need to slide, I'll use the left paddle. I find this alternative control pattern to be very natural and easy to learn, using both hands to control my car if I choose to do so, instead of just it being with mostly one hand. With the freedom of this very natural feeling control layout, my car control both on the ground and in the air has noticeably improved, and generally speaking I'm very pleased with this controller. Moving on, the Analog sticks have the classic loose feel of Xbox One controllers, but this is nothing to worry about as more importantly they are very smooth. I actually like the tension of the sticks to be slightly on the loose side because I often make very quick and rapid left stick inputs while playing and also make small adjustments. I don't know how I'd actually test the tension of the sticks, but I would say this controller has a tension somewhere in between the DualShock 3, which is loose, at least on the old one I had, and the DualShock 4, which is a little bit tighter than the sticks on the Xbox One, which I'll call medium tension. The sticks on the Xbox 360 have a very high tension just for reference, so this is able to give you a good idea of how the sticks feel. The triggers are smooth and have a good amount of resistance to them for good acceleration and braking control, but making comparisons with the tension of triggers is much trickier. What is the software like? In order to remap your buttons, you need to use the Xbox Accessories app. The app itself is okay, it comes loaded with presets for games, and even has a Rocket League preset. I don't use it though, as it changes the sensitivity curve for the sticks, and there's no way to scale your input using this app. I use my own profile that only has the remap paddles instead. You're able to use and store up to 2 profiles on the controller itself, but you can choose between using the switch on the front of the controller. On the app, you're able to store up to 255 profiles, which is more than enough to have a profile ready for every single controller-friendly game that you own. Within the profile, you're able to remap the paddles to any other button on the controller, and you're still able to use them on one button, but you can use the paddle that you have bound as an alternative. So, to summarise, what are the good and bad points about this controller, and what should players look for when they're buying a new controller? Starting with the cons, the biggest con is the price. This controller isn't cheap. The controller that you saw in the thumbnail and early on in the video is a refurbished copy that at the time when I got it was pretty much as good as new, minus a tiny scratch on the top next to USB ports. I still paid around £80 for it though. The Elite controller I have right now is a new one, but I'll talk about this later. That's a lot of money for a controller. You should really think about it as an investment for your quality of life within the game. Like I said before, you won't suddenly improve massively overnight just by owning the Elite. Another con is that durability may be a potential issue. The refurbished controller I used to have, the left bumper broke a few weeks after I got it, and then I had it repaired by the seller. A while after I got it back, both the left and right grip started to peel off, but the bumper was okay. The USB port was the next thing to go, which rendered the entire controller useless. Thankfully, the seller I bought it from was very nice and understanding, when I was very annoyed about my controller failing a second time, and having to pay for delivery to send it back again, and sent me a brand new controller for the trouble, so that's why I got my new one I'm using today. Regarding the grips peeling off, I first thought it was because my controller was refurbished, but this apparently is a common problem, even more common than the shoulder buttons going bad. People's grips are coming off anywhere between 5 to 13 months, and the only advice I can give is to avoid gripping the controller too hard, or twisting the grips. All I have to say is that Microsoft, you should really try to improve the durability of your controllers. I'm not particularly rough with controllers, but this isn't the first time I had one of the controller's bumpers fail on me. I've had this problem with normal controllers too, even more so actually. Also, if the grip peels off, it warps, making it almost impossible to glue it back on properly if you wanted to fix it yourself. As far as I know, there are no replacement rubber grips you can get. Microsoft customer service isn't exactly that great either. When people pay just under half the price for what entire Xbox One system cost, at least its full retail price, it's not unreasonable to expect a controller to last at least 2 years with no problems whatsoever. And if there are any problems, it needs to be much easier and faster to get resolved with you directly than it currently is now. Elite users pay the premium for a high quality product, and that is what they should receive. The third con is Xbox Accessories app is Windows 10 only, as far as I know. If you don't have a Windows 10 machine, it seems like you're tough out of luck as you won't be able to remap your buttons at all. If you do have a Windows 10 computer, but there's not a computer that you game with, it will be very annoying to switch computers every time you want to rebind what a paddle does. Not having a Windows 7 or 8.1 alternative is a really bad move, because Windows 7 is still a very relevant OS, but only just being behind Windows 10 where gamers on Steam are concerned. Technically, if we assume the percentage of the OS system used among Rocket League players are similar, only a minority of players will be able to rebind the pedals at their convenience. Microsoft, why aren't we just able to download an exe instead of being forced to get off the Windows 10 store? I understand you're encouraging people to move to a newer product, but not supporting an OS system that's still widely used and still clearly is very relevant is just plain stupid. In terms of what I look for in controllers, I look for a controller to have a nice tactile feel to all the buttons, have smooth triggers, extra buttons, no dead zone, little to no stick drift, and are reliable. I do have stick drift, but it's because I've set my 70 via the Steam controller config in Rocket League to be absurdly high. It's nothing too bad in normal circumstances though, even if using zero dead zone in game. The face buttons feel the same as on a normal Xbox One controller, the shoulder buttons feel slightly more crisp, the triggers feel more or less the same if not slightly smoother, and the thumbsticks are definitely smoother than on a standard Xbox One controller. The actuation feeling of the paddles could be better though, it's a very minor gripe I have. So who is this controller for? For the majority of the player base, this is a hard sell if you don't guess it Rocket League. The quality of life improvements that would be useful in-game probably doesn't justify the extra cost of the controller, plus potential durability issues with rubber grips I had after a few months. Not to mention this isn't even an issue on standard Xbox controllers as they have no rubber grips. They're also hard to replace if you have to resort to buying another controller if your RMA gets rejected due to the high price. If you're used to a PlayStation style controller and dislike the offset analog stick, this also may not be the controller for you because not only have to get used to the new left stick position, but the paddles too. Don't get me wrong, I'm not saying this is a bad controller, but for anyone but hardcore players, guessing it's a controller solely for Rocket League has considerable diminishing returns. That's all I have to say about the Elite. I would give it an overall rating of 7 out of 10, and would definitely recommend it to anyone looking to play more comfortably with control schemes that are pretty close to the defaults, or would rather not have a drift or boost button on one of the shoulder buttons, or if you just like to treat yourself to a nice controller. If you found this helpful, please like and subscribe for more content like this, and I'll see you next time.